Hello, everybody. My name is Eric McLeod.
And I'm Chris Holden.
And welcome. This is LowBlowRadio podcast, the blow-by-blow of UFC's first Fight Island.
It's our first MMA blow-by-blow, fittingly, for the Fight Island.
Yes, very true.
Anything special. There was absolutely nothing to differentiate this from any other arena show, aside from no fans. But
well, are you saying I dressed up for the occasion for nothing? I feel that that's the case.
You have made this a special occasion.
Well,
you've done more than Dana White did to make this a special occasion, Eric. So thank you. Still,
fair enough.
No shot.
I was teased by the octagon on the out on the beach. I wanted to see some Bodog style old school fights. That's what I wanted. I
don't understand why they didn't use that for at least one.
Oh, or like the main event or something. Like the sun was up by then. Like it's what, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning in Abu Dhabi right now. So
yeah, the fights went long enough that they could have run the final. The main event could have been run.
Absolutely. Well, should we kick off? I watched the whole show. How about you?
I watched quite a bit. I saw a few of the prelims, and I saw all of the main card. It's right 2 in the morning now, so yeah, we better get rolling on these.
Mine is no doubt. Yeah, we'll get kind of rolling. Yeah, I mean the prelims. There was a couple of sort of standout moments, but we'll get to the sort of low blows that were the biggest sort of standouts. But
that's the big standout.
I'd say for sure.
Everybody, welcome to it.
Dan Grant was in the very first match, the bantamweight fight there. And you didn't see that? He got a good KO in the third round, 2 minutes into the end. It was like a pretty good back and forth, but yeah, Grant landed a real nice clean shot and put him away. Nice way to sort of kick off the night before we got into the sort of hastiness of the prelims. And then, Hasro or Rosa. Oh, yeah, Rosa taking on Milo, bantamweight women. That was just a decision fight. A lot of back and forth stuff there too.
Oh, missed that one.
You missed that one too, yeah. And then we get right into the start of Dick Kick City, I guess. With
that's where I joined in.
Pavi and I was so good at pronouncing these earlier in the night, but again, yeah, it's 2 in the morning now, and it's a lot more of a struggle.
Zumagulov.
Yeah, I'll leave that one for you. Third round decision here again, and yeah, 2 low blows in this one. Geez, I mean, it's like they knew we were watching, but
yeah, low blow, and I'm like, thank you for the free promos. If anybody knew that we were doing, but regardless of that, it looked painful. Paper took a bad decision, and then I saw it was Mason Tabura against Maxim Grisham in his UFC debut. I was excited to see that fight.
For sure, that was really fun, actually. Yeah, like I mean, Grisham, you could see the size difference at heavyweight for him, but
yeah, he usually fights at light heavy, and he hadn't stuck on a bunch of extra weight yet. So he's in there at 226 with a guy at 252, and he looked every bit the smaller fighter in the octagon in that fight. So, and it seemed to make a difference as well. It was some good back and forth in the first round. It was Grisham constantly displaying the defense, the back against the cage defense, and trying to wriggle out of spots. He'd catch up, look like he'd get an advantage, and he's thrown right back into the same thing again. So,
I think he did what he could with a bigger opponent, and he was definitely trying to counter strike and do that kind of stuff. And then you can only play that game for so long if your opponent's looking to do something else, which we certainly saw a lot of tonight. The prelims kicked off later on with Santos and Bogatov, yes, in the lightweight division. This another one with 2 unfortunate low blows later in the third round. It was a decent first 2 kind of back and forth, and then this sort of like threw quite a wedge into the third round and almost lasted as long as the first 2 were.
Yeah, but in that third round, they included the illegal knee to the head. By that point, I didn't understand why he wasn't just disqualified, to be honest. The ref had already given him ample warnings about the low blows. When the ref's standing in the cage, looking at the fighter and yelling at him, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" How does he not DQ him? Suddenly I was reminded of watching wrestling. And the ref just watched him slam him with a chair in the ECW, and instead of a DQ, he's just like, tusk.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was shocked that didn't just end the fight. But the two action.
I don't know if it was just a sort of language barrier or whatever, but he seemed to try to get the point across to him to keep the strikes higher or whatever. He'd hit him with the knees twice. The second time you could hear it clear as day on the cup, and he was ready to take the point. And he hadn't yet. And then, by the time he hit him with the illegal knee, he was in all clear rights to just disqualify him, but he took the 2 points away. And that was basically the nail in the coffin for what was already going to be a loss for Bogatov there.
To be fair, though, I honestly thought that the second low blow, and I only saw the one replay, the one angle, but I thought it was a glancing shot up the cup. And don't get me wrong, I get it. The cup can definitely, then the cup is the thing that makes the contact, and that can be just as painful. And a glancing shot in that area can be just as bad as a full-on blow in that area for sure. But having said that, I've seen much worse low blows, and he was down. I thought Santos was taking a bit of an advantage for that. But I still don't think that's an excuse for laying that knee into him, though. So
no, that's for sure. Yeah, I mean, they certainly talked a bit on Bisping did on the commentary, where it was sort of, sometimes you got to play the game when you're in that third round.
Bisping's got a lot of nerve talking about illegal moves. That's all I'm saying about that.
Well, that's pretty true. It's a pot calling the kettle black there. We moved off with Miranovsky taking on Henry there in the featherweight division. Was this the female fight? I think it was.
Oh, man, I was back walking the dog now, so I missed these. This is where I tuned out of the prelims.
I think this was a real.
Right at the KO, right at the giant KO at the end of the prelims is where I got back.
Okay, no, we had a nice quick submission there for Miranevsky, and then Dos Santos and Salvanovsky, which was a close fight, which was a split decision, which was sort of, again, inclinations of what was sort of to come for the rest of the night with the judging and that kind of stuff for when certain fights went that way. But the prelims did definitely cap off with a really big match with the former light heavyweight contender. I think he's number 7-ish or whatever ranked now. Ozen, taking on the debuting Porchinetsky. There was a lot of tough names tonight.
Yeah, damn these foreign fight nights again, eh? For a while we just said Jones versus Gomez, Smith.
Absolutely, it was nice to see international guys back on the card, but it also, I got to be back on cue with my pronunciation, and I do a lot better when I've heard Bruce Buffer tell me exactly how to do it. No, this guy, I mean, he obviously had a lot of hype in the videos leading up to this match, a lot of talk kind of going in. This is a big opponent for him to kick off with here. I mean, sort of a guy from the lulls of the light heavyweight sort of times when he sort of was challenging for the title against Cormier, but I mean, still a very challenging person in no time there. So a back and forth kind of first round, but the second his sort of weird unorthodox style was able to just sort of capitalize him with that really big head kick, backed him up against the cage, and then that nice clean right hook, and he had no more time for him.
Nope, that was good night. Flip to the main card after that. Most notable for me at this point is when I realized that we're just listening to John Anik and Michael Bisping. No Joe.
Right.
Joe didn't want to take the flight. Didn't want to go to Fight Island? Scared of the Sharks?
I guess not. I'm going to say
Scared of the Rona?
I didn't tune in right away, but around the first title match, I tuned into his live broadcast on the Joe Rogan Experience YouTube page with him and Joey Diaz and Tony Hinchcliffe.
Yeah, as soon as I saw that Joey Diaz was on it, I decided I didn't want to watch it. How was it, though?
It was good. It was really fun. I always enjoy that. It breaks up the monotony sometimes, especially when it's the same two guys. You've been hearing them all night. By the time I got to the title fights, I was like, oh, this will be good to sort of split it up and break up the matches a little bit. And, I missed early on. I don't know if he mentioned why he wasn't there, but it was interesting to just hear Anik and Bisping.
Depending on who he's got doing that with him, I do really enjoy Joe Rogan's podcasts, and particularly the Fight Companion. When he's done it with Brendan Schwab's on before, he's had other fighters on before. They've been really good, and extra dimension to watching it, different from the commentary, especially then if he's not on the commentary team.
Sure.
Who have they got instead, right? And I'm not a huge Bisping fan. I'm just not. My gets on my nerves a lot of the time.
Well, I'm guessing this probably isn't a compliment because when my dad watches these shows, he's like, "That guy sounds like Chris."
Hey, we sound the same. We got the same background. That's about as similar as we get. That and the haircut for a couple of years, I guess. There. Anyway,
fair enough.
We kicked it off with a flyweight fight. Paige Van Zandt. It's got to be it for her, right? She went down to Amanda Ribas.
Yeah.
First round, finished with an armbar. Van Zandt, she's got a lot of heart. This girl always has, but it's really been her number one weapon. And how far can Charm and Beauty take you? Well, apparently pretty far. But at a certain point, there comes a time when right?
Yeah, you would imagine it was a 10-fight deal that she signed early on, and this is the end of that sort of lineage or whatever. To think back, it was like the kickoff of the Reebok stuff. Like that's how long ago she was sort of like her star was sort of being born in the UFC. It was sort of one of their first people that they were getting behind like that, where they had singled out certain fighters that were getting different deals than what the other fighters were in that kind of stuff. So no, I think she did what she could with that kind of stuff. But when you're sort of learning, Bisbee mentioned it with other people too, when you're learning on the job here in this kind of situation, that kind of thing can happen when you haven't had the time in other places to sort of like hone your craft and be title contention. You realize just how tough the competition can be in the UFC, and then you just sort of get, lost in the shuffle a little bit. And that's sort of what's happened to Paige here. And I think it would be the same thing if she re-signed. So I think she's much better off to take a deal with Bellator or something like that.
Either a deal with Bellator or just, does she need to fight, really? She can make enough money doing plenty of other things. She could move into movies, straight up modeling. There's lots of things for Paige Van Zandt to do. She has enough name and a brand behind her. And I get nothing against the girl for the fighting. Wanted to. And I'm sure if she did make a move to a Bellator or somewhere else, maybe there she can come over as being more dominant, get some wins, right? If she really develops the skills and beats a lot of these girls, puts herself in a whole different spot to maybe then come back in a while. A year and a half off that she's just taken, though, like everybody else, nobody gets any younger. I don't know. I don't know if that's I don't know. I'm not in her head. Obviously, do what she wants to do.
Oh, for sure.
Just looking from my perspective, if I were in her shoes, I'm done with getting punched in the face for a living for a while. There's lots of other things for me to do that I can make even more money at, be more successful at, and I've done what I can here. She'll go out with an 8-5 record. She goes out with she's winning one more than she lost, but I don't see anything changing around for her in her position in the UFC right now. And what's she going to do? Continue to take on up and coming young ones as a stepping stone? Nobody wants to be in that position of being either you're thwarting kids that you should be beating or you're getting beaten by them.
Well, that's just it. She needs to figure out what she wants to do. If she's like wanting to be in that championship scene and that kind of stuff, it just seems like if the skill set's there, that's fine. And if it's something that we're just not seeing in these particular fights, but it's a confidence level too. There's the level between being like really good in the gym and good in spars and all that kind of stuff. And then when you get into the octagon and the confidence just didn't quite seem there in this. And that is something that you could gain going somewhere else. If you're all of a sudden the big shark in a little pond, you can gain some confidence getting, not guaranteed wins, but fights where you don't feel the pressure of like needing to live up, because it felt like the name got bigger than her actual like wins and that kind of stuff. People knew the name and that kind of stuff more so than her status as a fighter.
Arguably, that's true from her UFC debut.
Yeah,
I totally agree. So yeah, and again, arguably from her UFC debut, she was thrown some fairly easy fights early on and never looked 100% comfortable or confident in that cage. So again, nothing against the girl. I think her number one weapon from day one has been her heart. And you always love to see fighters like that, but it's not winning her any fights anymore. And it's
true. And Ribas just like
that's over.
This was just a bad opponent for her too, coming right back. She's a hungry, looking for a spotlight like this, like a main event fight like that, willing to move up to flyweight and that kind of thing. She looked fantastic taking on that kind of challenge. It looked like it didn't bother her whatsoever. So
Yeah, no, yeah, she looked good. That's the other thing is you don't want to end up taking away from Amanda, Brazilian girl, looked really
Oh,
good.
for sure. Yeah, no, she's on a 4-fight win streak in the UFC, 5 fights in total, undefeated. She looked absolutely fantastic. I can't wait to see what else they offer her again at strawweight. Even there's going to be some stuff opening up there, which we can get to next when we had Rose Nagamunez taking on Andrades.
Jessica Andrade.
Andrades or whatever it is.
Andrade
Yes.
or Andrade.
Andras.
I kept saying Andrade.
Yeah.
I want to say Andrade because it's spelled that way, and we talk about Andrade on wrestling all the time.
Exactly. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names, but yeah, this was, they could say, both former strawweight female champions. The rematch everyone kind of wanted to see before the division sort of went in all kinds of weird directions when she lost the title to Son, and then Son had that amazing fight with Janchik, and then now that's the rematch everyone wants to see, but then you get a really good match between these two. So, I mean, it could lead to all kinds of different stuff. No, this was a fun, really showed that Rose kind of like studied what happened the last time and tried to game plan a little bit better, avoid the leg kicks and that kind of stuff. But Andrade had a real good head movement and that kind of stuff starting out. It just wasn't quite enough. I think she lost those first 2 rounds, but man, she poured it on in that third.
Yeah, I thought she looked better in the first. Jessica looked better in the first round in this fight, more confident and more aggressive than she did in the first fight against Rose. I thought Rose looked, not that she looked less dangerous, but that she wasn't looking as dominant as she'd looked in the first battle between the two, which she ended up losing that one. Right? So,
right,
it got sluggy in the second. And then
title fights can be different too. The pacing's a lot different too for champions if they want to, if they're worried about having to go 5 rounds and that kind of stuff. The first rounds can be a little tougher too. So that, I don't know if that plays a factor in their last competition, because then going to a 3rd round fight, you're a little bit more on the ball you only have the 25 minutes to really get or the 15 minutes to get something done here.
Yeah, it certainly changes the outlook on, right? It would.
Yeah.
It has to change your strategy somewhat.
For sure. I mean, if this all of a sudden kept going, I mean, she had certainly got the momentum, but with 2 more rounds, she definitely could have maybe pulled out a win there. The damage
Quite
that she had done to Rose by the end there, right? But no, this was just a 3-round fight, and that's what you end up calling it. Rose won those first 2. It was a split decision. The ref certainly called it pretty close with that 3rd round, but Rose did just enough to sneak out this win and move herself back up the ladder.
I'm sure you noticed as well that as the referee was raising their hands, you could see a nice a black line popping up under Rose's eye. By the time she's doing the post-fight interview with Anik, not 2 minutes later. Yeah, it's that thickness, but it's covering the entire thing down to here. It's purple now, swelling. Yeah, that's not going to look pretty in the morning, but tough fight from both girls. It was a good scrap. It was a really good scrap. And yeah, just the first of many to go the distance by the end. Bantamweight championship fight was next. Peter Yan, the Russian, up against the legendary Jose Aldo,
King of Rio.
The WEC, the final WEC featherweight champion, first UFC featherweight champion, 2-time UFC featherweight champion. Not the UFC bantamweight champion, though.
Nope. I guess we'll see if maybe he can cut down to flyweight and take on Benavidez.
What did you think?
I mean, he still looked good. I don't want to take anything away from Aldo, especially in this fight. He looked like old Aldo. He had been suffering a lot from matchups and that kind of stuff where, like, his skill set, again, you're only going to evolve so much, especially at his age and his kind of level. You're going to do so much to have takedown defense and amazing jiu-jitsu and all that kind of stuff. But if you just end up against young, tough wrestlers, you're going to get stifled, and they just know what to do to kind of stop you or to slow you down kind of thing. So him going in there with a striker was really fun to see. He was able to throw more, obviously, strikes and that kind of stuff, bring the leg kicks back into it. And he was certainly mixing it up with Yan in this as much as he could. And then Yan just toughed it out, tore into him.
The first round, I was waiting for Yan to come with big shots and start really firing off. They both looked so tentative, like they were both looking at and for leg kicks and what the other was going to do with kicks. So there was like the twitch movement and motion constantly on the upper side and head movement back and forth.
Right.
But they're both watching the other guy's leg. And it's like, I thought I was going to see more. He landed a couple of good shots. One that I'd written down initially, he hit two big rights he'd hit him with in the first round. And I thought they were both too close to the front of his chin. If he'd hit it more McGregor style back here. But on the replay, the first shot was more on the back of the jaw. Neither one of them did put him down. So Aldo's just, he does have a great jaw. He can take a punch. He's a tough little cookie. There's no.
Oh, for sure. Sometimes it's just.
As long as he was without being the toughest guy, right? So
absolutely.
But yeah, I gave him round 1 for sure. But yeah, Aldo looked tough, looked good, but he didn't look like he was a winner to me at all. I didn't give him anywhere in the fight.
Fair enough. No, I thought the leg kicks were doing damage. They were certainly slowing Yan down. Like Yan had to stay in it and that kind of stuff. But yeah, he just kept pouring it on. And then it was just that typical Aldo where like he benefited from those later rounds where it was like, okay, now you have to beat the champ in these later rounds that he can kind of survive. The tiredness, just kind of set in by that fourth. Yan really poured it on, and then in the fifth, he got the TKO finish near the end, which should have been a lot earlier, actually. But the ref gave Aldo some championship tries there, and maybe a few more than he really should have got.
I mean, these ones are always contentious and debatable. You've got the one hand. Well, my one personal standpoint was the referee seemed to think, forget that he was the ref, and thought he was just watching the fight. And he's cheering him on and hoping Aldo can get out of it. And then he suddenly remembered, shit, I'm the ref. I'm the one that's supposed to stop it. That's why nobody stopped it yet. And then he stopped it. But I get the argument of it's Jose Aldo, multiple-time champion, legend in the sport.
Yeah, I mean, he would ask him, and then he would move, and he would do what he could to sort of like.
But it was never intelligent defense.
No.
There was never an argument that any of those roles and slight position changes, that Anik tried to excuse it with that in the commentary.
Yeah.
It was time enough between when fans decided this fight should end and the referee stopping the fight. There was time enough to get it trending on Twitter, #StopTheFight. That's not good.
No.
So it's unquestionable that should have been stopped earlier. Having said that, right, we've seen the same thing, the same kind of leeway he's given to BJ Penn in the past because he's such a legend.
Yeah.
You take that extra bit of licking because you're going to be mad at me if I don't let you. And, I don't think it's actually going to cause damage. I think that has to weigh somewhere into their mind that they actually don't think this is going to cause a permanent damage.
Yeah. Yeah, this one, I mean, it's pretty easy to call. There's no way, like, it's pretty hard to be coming back from this position. It's those ones where it's like the Dominic Cruz, Henry Cejudo, where it's like, I mean,
for sure,
3 or 4 more punches I would be fine with. Where he looked hurt for sure, but it's a fight. You're getting hit. I want to see what happens with a few more punches. Like if that was what calls it, then shit on me for being the dick for saying that he had to eat a bunch of shots that he didn't need to take. But no, sometimes it's always a fine line. But no, this was definitely not that fine line. Aldo was certainly out of there.
They threw up a scorecard at some point with how many shots it was uncontested in that 5th round, and I think it ended up at 63 to something. And obviously mostly due to the raining down at the end there where he had him beat. But we move on. The fight went practically 25 minutes. Then the featherweight championship match, which again, I think I see some people saying that this was highly controversial and a big thing. I see it a little bit, the controversy, but at the same time, Alex Volkanovski defends his featherweight championship over Max Holloway.
Yeah.
Despite arguably Max winning that fight 3-2. I think that's probably a fair assessment, but
yeah,
it was such a great scrap, such a back and forth tilt all the way through. The guys were toe to toe. Neither guy looked like the dominant winner of this fight. And my feeling has always been in a championship fight, the challenger has to beat the champ. You got to do it somewhat decisively. That doesn't always mean a finish, but for a decision, to win a decision, you've got to have decisively beaten him over some rounds. And there was, again, no decisive winner here. I'd have been satisfied to have heard it be a draw, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally understand why it was the split. I mean, the first early 3, you get into that like 3rd round situation where like in a 5-round fight, it's hard to remember who's really winning that second, third round kind of thing. If it isn't, again, like really highly contested, if it's a lot of just back and forth, which is what we had here. Max was just sort of like the pitter patter stuff. It was landing more. He was doing better to avoid like the leg kicks and avoid the kind of typical stuff that he was getting from Volkanovski the first time, which you would expect in a rematch kind of deal.
For sure.
And then it was just sort of, that fourth and fifth round were very swang. And then it's hard to see how those, I mean, they obviously didn't adjust the scoring in the early ones, but you just never know how all of a sudden a round went early on with those rounds being so decisive. And that is just on Max for sort of not being able to, overcome that in those later rounds. And you can easily lose a split decision here. It's a shame sometimes in what you would hope for a trilogy, especially with the fight being so close. If they had given it to Max, you'd be like, okay, well, I definitely want to see the third fight. Now you're just like, well, he's already won twice, but it was so close. It's hard to justify now, but.
Well, I mean, you justify buying the third fight if Max, now I wouldn't right away, but if Max goes somewhat back to the drawing board, wins a fight or two, he's right back in contention. If Alex is still the champ, if he's not, then that's definitely a contender matchup, like a qualifier to get to the title match, whoever's taking it from Alex, right?
For sure.
So, I mean, I thought it was round one. I thought Max won, took the first.
Yeah.
I think took the second, but the second was closer. By the third round, I gave the third round to Alex. The fourth, I thought it was Max's again. But again, another competitive round. That I honestly do think it was a matter of the fifth round being Max's more so. And putting on the pressure and looking like he'd won it. You're right. They're not going to go, like a judge isn't going to go back and revise a scorecard. I'm pretty sure they do actually fill it in at the end of each round, so it shouldn't make that difference.
Yeah.
I could conceivably see where it was 2-2 going into the fifth, and that last round made all the difference. So
no, for sure. That tends to happen when you get a split decision like this, when something is just so close and when they're highly competitive, and that's why we end up with, I say what we'll get to, which is just sort of five-round championship fights, which is sort of I mean, you never know what's going to happen in an MMA fight, but lately in the octagon, when you have this high caliber of fighters and that kind of stuff, you end up just sort of sometimes at a stalemate like this, where these two guys are just, their skill sets just collide to the point where there just isn't necessarily going to be that advantageous point. If someone's looking to counter strike, but other person's not looking to strike with them, we'll get to that later on. Sometimes there's just a counterbalance with
exactly. It's
a mesh up of skills.
Always stylistic. It's MMA, right? So you'll get exactly that, and that's been tonight. That was, aside from Dick Kick City, the other theme was 25-minute matches, right? Which is great.
It's the curse.
Unless
sometimes
you want to do a little thing afterwards and record it, and you're going to stay up until 3 a.m. to do that, right? That's
or 4 a.m. when you got to edit it.
Yeah, 4 a.m. Hey, are you watching Dominion after as well? Or are you just going to? I'm going to do that tomorrow now. I think I was going to watch Dominion, but no.
I wait for English. I'm not. I love New Japan. Don't get me wrong, but I still need Kevin Kelly. Anyways, let's get to. We're focusing here on UFC. This is not.
Yes. Sorry.
Wrestling today. Just plenty to talk about with that. We'll get to our main event here. Masvidal stepping in on 9 days' notice, taking on Usman for the welterweight title. This, I mean, what was to sort of be expected from Usman, from what we've gotten from his other matchups inside the octagon, where he just, what are you going to do with the size and the sort of strength of Usman? And everyone just sort of hoped for something big and amazing from Masvidal, because he's been known for it. And I mean, he certainly tried.
Motherfucker, that's why.
Exactly. He landed some good strikes, and he tried to get Usman to exchange with them, and you could tell he was getting the better of him in that stuff. But he's not a stupid champion. He's not just going to participate in something that he's not going to keep winning. And he just did an old school kind of Randy Couture thing and just held him against the cage for the 5 rounds.
Yeah, a little bit of Randy. I see Usman as the new George St. Pierre. I think he's smart enough to develop a fight plan that shuts down what the opponent is good at, regardless of how good the opponent is at that skill set.
Yeah.
And that's his strong suit. And that was GSP's biggest skill was I'm not taking you on at your game. It's different from what a John Jones does, what Anderson Silva started out as, which I'll meet you at what you do and I'll dominate you at it.
Yeah.
I know what you're great at. I know what you're going to try to do to me. So to beat you, all I have to do is not let you do that. And yeah, Masvidal, that's what the fans wanted to see, a violent slugfest. We got it for about the first 2 minutes of the fight. It looked like it was going to be that way. But Jorge looked pretty fucking gassed out early at that stage because of it.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, rightfully so. Take the fight on 6 or 9 days notice. That's not a camp. That's not time to prepare adequately. And as
for sure.
He's the kind of guy that's walking around usually prepped and ready for a fight.
Yeah.
Not a human chess match. Usman wants to make a human chess match out of it.
And sometimes you just never know either, right? I mean, and nothing to take away from Masvidal. I mean, taking this on 9 days' notice in the last 5 rounds. I mean, this guy put Colby Covington away last time. That's no easy task. So, like, there's nothing to take nothing away from Usman, as boring and that kind of stuff as he can be. Sometimes he knows when to explode and that kind of stuff. But every time he opened up to exchange with Masvidal, he got the worst of it. He was getting kicked too much. He was getting tagged too much. And it was just going to be a matter of time if he was going to keep attempting something. Masvidal just kept trying to counter it, so he just knew, I'll just attempt to then counter into a hold, take him down and that kind of stuff. No, he played the proper sort of game plan going into this, and it was sort of what was to be expected. So I don't know what you would have got with a proper training camp from Masvidal. I don't know if that would have changed things at all, but
I don't see it. I honestly don't see it. I mean, again, I think he's going into this fight against Usman right now at probably the peak of his career. You need a perfect shot and a perfect opening. And for that to happen against this guy right now, you need him to make a mistake as much as anything else for that to happen.
Right.
And he's not giving a lot of those opportunities away. So now you know, slim percentage chance to get that perfect shot in. And not everyone's perfect. So that's why, I give him, even with a full camp. Not that I'm saying I wouldn't be interested to see it. Yeah. But I think I'd rather see Masvidal take on Colby Covington or Diaz again, or a fight like that. A fight that, you know, stylistically someone wants to go to war with him and it's going to last a round or less.
Oh, for sure. This loss isn't going to hurt him at all if he waits.
No.
I think he maybe, I mean, obviously being a little beat up and that kind of stuff. If he comes out pretty clean off this, they're going to do the Whitaker Colby fight in a couple of weeks. So, like, that's easily a win or lose. He can match up with somebody from that. There's plenty of people sort of lingering in the welterweight division. Like we said, if Woodley's ready to get back in there, you know,
I'd like to see
no better way to start things up, right? And again, a 3-round or even a 5-rounder main event, that kind of stuff. It all depends where you get put in the card and what the matchup is. So no, this didn't hurt Masvidal to take a fight like this on short notice. It's unfortunate when like not a big performance doesn't help someone like Usman, but yeah, like you said, I think he's setting himself up to very much be a sort of a new George St. Pierre in that dominant wrestling sense. Is, you know, not entertaining as it can be sometimes.
I saw it said well on Twitter with several things, but with one respect to the fight, that Usman defended the welterweight title and Masvidal successfully defended the bad motherfucker champion at the same time. So, and I agree with that conclusion. I don't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah, no, he stayed in it. He lasted 5 rounds with a legitimate champion, and I was surprised took a fight on 9 days' notice. That's a badass motherfucker. So
yeah, I was surprised to see 2 judges score it perfect for Kamaru. I thought 49-46 was fair. I would give Masvidal the run round. I thought second round he did win. I thought that he came out of that one looking like it made it an even fight again. Don't get me wrong, I see the arguments where he didn't, but I thought that it was squared up at that point.
A little bit more back and forth. No, I think the takedowns in the cage domination he just was giving up too much time in those sort of moments, and the refs just don't. Even if you had some big pops and exchanges, there just was so much time spent on the cage that it was certainly the downfall for Masvidal in the game plan for Usman, and a great way to sort of switch things up. If that was maybe the game plan for Burns, but if you had to sort of change it up for a big striker like this, that's the smartest way to not lose your title. So that's what we didn't see. We didn't get anything big and exciting, but hey,
he went through the fight. Island. Yeah, I mean, well, he went through the fight with Masvidal and comes out looking like he didn't have a fight tonight. So that in itself, you really can look at that as a giant win. An accomplishment to a degree. I get it where people were saying it was a boring fight, but Jesus, you're in there, one of the two guys. You'd rather have a boring fight and come away with no scratches in the morning than have an exciting fight and 2 broken orbital bones and a smashed nose. And even if you want, right?
Yeah, for sure. Even on Usman's end, other than competing in a 5-round fight, I don't know what the conditions were for Burns having to pull out, but if it's a matter that, again, they could just reschedule it for August, September, I mean, easily let's turn that back around and get the fight we were sort of expected to see here. More action in the welterweight division is good. I think keep more action for champions is great. I think keeping them active, keeping them going. I
guess he will still get.
Is always fun.
He should still get the next shot now, right? Why wouldn't he?
Who are you saying?
Gilbert.
Yeah. Yeah, you would imagine so. Yeah, he was already set up in that position, and it was only situational that it was taken from him. So,
if those were only ugly when the title changes hands, when the step in beats the champ, then you're left in a fuck position. But right now, Dana's like, yeah, easy.
Or it would have been, or vice versa. I mean, if Masvidal had come in there and like huge flying knee, taking him out right away, you could have booked Burns in like a month or two as well, right? And he still could have got in there. It's always circumstantial and that kind of stuff. That's the interesting thing about the world of UFC and MMA in general. So yeah, that's our blow by blow.
Next time, sharks.
Yes, please. We didn't get any sharks, no crocodiles, no
palm trees.
No island fights, not a lot of fight island stuff. I'm not dressing up next time.
Yeah, well, it's not your fault, man.
Fine. I blame Dana White. I'm tweeting at my disappointment in my Hawaiian shirt.
Oh, you will not be alone.
Good.
So, yeah.
Well,
don't call it Fight Island when it's not going to be a fight fucking island.
Exactly. Well, this was a fun blow-by-blow of our first sort of MMA event. And Chris, where can you let everyone know where they can listen to us?
Listen to us on Wednesday nights, 88.7 FM, The River Radio, if you're in Ontario. Outside of the province, you can check that out online at 887theriver.ca in the archive section. And then you also go to Twitter right here.
Perfect.
0887. And you can check out the podcast, which we put on YouTube and Sounder, and goes out from there whenever there's a big thing in one of these things.
Perfect. Well, make sure you keep your eyes and ears open. Yes, make sure you like, share, and subscribe here on YouTube. And we will catch you next time here on Low Blow Radio Podcast.
Thanks for joining us. Have a good one. Now what